Dr. Katz, how long's it been? 2 years. How are you?
I'm great. It's so nice to see you, Phil.
You too. So you should feel incredibly special. You're the first person who's ever been on the show 3 times. So that's yeah. I was convinced. I was like, you definitely have been on 3 times because I think you came on, shared your story. We had a Q and
hmm
A, and then now 2 year follow up, which I think is really cool. Um, what I'd like to do, if you could just give people who haven't watched, because we've got so many episodes now, people, I'll link the episodes in the description, but could you just give people a little bit of an overview of like your background, your story, your chronic illness story, not like a full chronic comeback story,
Yeah.
but just like an overview, and then how you got
Yeah.
to kind of doing what you're doing, and Primal Trust.
Sure. Yeah. So, like many of you listening, I have been through the ringer with a pile of diagnosis, going from doctor to doctor. I spent over 10 years mostly stuck in my house and feeling pretty sick for almost 20 years, to be honest. Ranging from Lyme disease to mold toxicity to viral and parasites and autoimmune and digestive issues and PTSD, insomnia, mast cell, all the stuff you guys probably are familiar with. For me at the time, my journey started in about 2000, 2003. So a long time ago, before these things were common household names. I was feeling funny, and I went for years not understanding. I was given the anti-anxiety pill and the stomach acid pill, and so um, I was in a medical system that just did not know how to deal with chronic illness. And I did have a background, though. I was a physical therapist and I was trained to work with mind body syndrome stuff, chronic pain stuff. So I had some understanding what was going on, but I definitely got taken over by the medical model of you've got this symptom and you've got to take this pill and you've got this and you got to do that. And so I really didn't find a solution for a long time. And gosh, now about 7 years ago, I really hit rock bottom when my function was so poor that I was living in a dark, quiet room. I couldn't handle sound. I couldn't handle light. I had two small children. I couldn't take care of them. I couldn't drive. And I realized like this isn't working. Like all of these protocols for Lyme and mold and like what the heck is going on? And it kind of brought me back to my physical therapy roots of the brain and the nervous system. And so I took a different approach. I took my health into my hands. And sure enough, that's what helped me to start to crawl out of debilitating chronic illness. And once I realized that the brain and the nervous system have a lot more to do with our ongoing chronic symptoms, I devoted all of my time and study into that. And I started not only healing, but coaching others. And then eventually founding the Primal Trust Academy and community, where now I walk people through a sequence of processes to help them reclaim their life and also to, frankly, reprogram them into what is actually going on. Meaning, we are given a program that this pathogenic model that your root cause is this bug or your root cause is this toxin. Really, the root cause is how is your body responding to the bug and to the toxin? How is your immune system responding? Because two people can have the same infection and the same mold exposure and they respond completely differently. So the problem is how you respond, not the original insult. And that's really been, I think, the game changer that I'm trying to bring into the chronic illness healing community.
Wow, you did an awesome job of summarizing that up in such a short piece of period of time. If someone asked me to try and do my story as well, like I think it would take me like 20 minutes. That was great. And just I want to make this clear to everyone. This is not I'm not promoting Dr. Katz's course. I say what I genuinely think, and when things have helped me, and I'm always genuine in that. I've tried a lot of different things, I've also tried a lot of different courses, and I think I've taken like little bits of little courses. And I think one of the two of the main things that have helped me is, and it's interesting. I would like to go back to like the chronic pain thing because I'd like to get your opinion on that. Because I did some work on that after starting your course. So full disclosure to everyone, I took Dr. Katz's course but I didn't complete it all. I think that's just more on me, that like I kind of find it all a little bit more like schoolwork almost. But the amazing thing about it was that I feel like you made me feel like it was okay as well, and that I had taken what I needed from it at that time. And maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but the main things that I got from the bits that I did, which have been super powerful, and I mentioned them on the podcast, is not feeling like you're broken, not feeling into that, feeding into that identity of being sick. And when people say, "Oh, I was sick," or, "I've been sick," and like, and building into that identity, that was pretty huge. And then one of the actual like main things was like finding like joy every single day. And I remember you talked about that a lot. And I remember thinking, wow, I actually can't remember the last time I like actively sought out joy, and I can't remember the last time I actively um enjoyed anything in my day, which sounds quite depressing. I wasn't like depressed or anything, but I was just literally just in this cycle of I'd walk once because that was the only thing I could do. I'd work as much as I could, and then I'd go to bed feeling like shit. And because you told me that, I was like, what do I get the most joy out of? And it was like exercise. And I was like, well, I don't do that at the moment. I can't do it. And I remember you saying there's one thing, it was like, no, you need to build the identity that you do exercise. Even if you do this above your head, you exercise. I was like, okay, well, I do walk, but for me, that's not enough. So I was like, whatever happens, I'm committed now that exercise is going to be like my main focus. And without like realizing it, and I know I'm going into my story now, but it links into what we're talking about. Without realizing it, I feel like the journey I've been on with exercise has retrained my nervous system in a weird way to trust again, and to believe that I'm strong and I'm not broken and that I can improve. So yeah, I just wanted to like start with that. And how important do you feel like the elements of what I've just said are to people's recovery? And yeah, what do you think to that?
Absolutely. You've said it perfectly in that your identity, you went from sick to I am somebody who enjoys exercise and I'm going to find a way to do that regardless of what my level of that is. That is huge. That is the big turnaround that I see, that for whatever reason, illness can almost hijack our sense of self. And then our mind body connection basically runs that program. That's how we respond to life. Something hits me, a stressor hits me, a toxin hits me, a bug hits me. I get sick. I don't respond well. And that's all you're thinking about. And the interesting thing is that the autonomic nervous system is the big daddy. And one of the best ways that we can influence that is how we're living our day and how we're perceiving our day. Do we feel like every day we have lived in some way? Have we lived our values in some way, even if we don't feel well? It is possible to suffer and to experience joy in the same day. It is possible to suffer and to experience things you love in the same day. It's not black or white. And that opens this space of, even though I am dealing with this thing, I can enjoy my life. And there's something that happens in the autonomic nervous system, the immune system, the detoxification system when we make that quantum leap. And it really is almost a quantum leap that you have to make.
Yeah, that was the other thing as well. Not waiting for your life to start again. Like when I get better, that was the thing that I used to say a lot. When I get better, I'll do that. When I'm feeling better, I'll do this. And yeah, it's totally like you don't have to wait until everything's perfect. And it's back to that like perfection. That was another thing as well. Perfectionism. I think you talk a lot about that. And I think I was in denial at that point, that I was like, I'm not a perfectionist. I mean, you need to see the state of my like bedroom sometimes, the state of my workspace. Like I'm far from a perfectionist. But then I did another podcast with someone, they were talking about perfectionism, and they were like, no, you do realize, you are a perfectionist, like, in the way you're approaching like your health. It's hypervigilance, which is another form of perfectionism. What how much of this do you feel like plays a role? Because I feel like that was like a big thing for in the course, that it was, which I loved, which was take the pressure off. Like,
Mm.
yeah, that's kind of what I felt like. It was, you don't need to do it perfectly. You know, if you do it for but just do it consistently. And that was kind of felt. Just don't worry whether you're doing it perfectly.
Yeah.
And and I think that in itself is a relief to the nervous system.
Yeah. We have a setup that I think happens when a lot of us get chronically ill and we're trying to help ourselves get better, that we have to figure out exactly what's going on. There's this like white knuckle grip. We've got to like do our protocols just right. And oh no, it's not going to get better. And that vigilance, that grasping, all of that is constriction to our system. And we have to learn how to let go and live. Like when people heal from a flu, like health people that don't get stuck in chronic illness, they get sick and they don't try to figure out how to get better from the flu. They take it easy. They're not thinking about every little thing. They're letting their autonomic nervous system in their body, the wisdom in there take over. When we start getting perfectionistic and grasping and try to and get our conscious mind too involved, we're not giving the space to the processes of our unconscious, our innate intelligence to take over. We're just creating more of a stress response. And then, everything we do that we think is helpful when it's done with that perfectionism limbic drive, it's giving the counter message. You're giving a counter message of this is dangerous, actually. What the things you're trying to do that are helpful, because they're done with hypervigilance, it's sending more messages of danger, which is not gonna help your autonomic nervous system turn around.
Mm, yeah. God, it's I wished I'd like had this at the beginning of my
Me
journey.
too. Me
It's
too. I should have talked to myself 20 years ago.
yeah, I wish this was like the first. Well, I first of all wish that they just gave you a book of recovery stories. That, look, don't worry, people get better. And then they talk to you about the nervous system. I want to talk a bit about the chronic pain stuff, because I then went because I had, well, I still have, but no, not nowhere near as bad, but still have some pain issues. But chronic pain was like a big part of like my symptoms. And so I did chronic pain. God, I can't remember his name now. Dan Ratner, Dr.
Yep.
Dan Ratner, great guy. And I felt it was actually like there was a lot of crossover there with like your messaging, and it was like these symptoms come up, these pain symptoms come up, and it's like you know, people then going, "Oh God, I need to have a scan of my hip. I need to go and have an operation on my hip," and they go and mess themselves up further. And actually, if you do a scan, they probably will say, "Oh, there's something there," but actually, there's a lot of people who don't have pain and they have something there. And I thought that was another like key turning point for me. Like when you get these like really this incredible joint pain, there's actually nothing wrong, even though that in itself can be really triggering to people. To admit there's nothing wrong, even though there is. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit of a head fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of the hardest things for people to do sometimes with chronic pain. And I love the work of the pioneer in this, John Sarno, where he started to challenge the status quo of um, a lot of people test positive for disc herniations that don't have pain. So it might not be a disc herniation because we get a pain, then we go get a scan. The scan's like, oh yeah, see, you've got this thing, and that's what's causing your pain. And he really proved that people have all sorts of things on scans and they don't necessarily have pain. So the pain may or may not be caused by an actual injury. And we know now that the pain is created in the brain. Pain, chronic pain is typically a processing issue in the brain. There's so much research to support this. Now, it doesn't mean that there's nothing happening in that joint or that area. What can happen is literally we can get almost like an overactive immune response in certain parts of our body because that's where our brain and our body communicate, and we get stress signals, and it starts to make a lower threshold of pain that it's signaling, and sometimes even like cytokine release and other sorts of inflammatory processes that are actually being released, but it's because of the way that we are processing the stress in our life. And so Even the way that our body metabolizes cortisol into cortisone, as our stress responses change, that metabolism, that shift from cortisol to cortisone can change your pain signals in your body. You can go from feeling well to when your stresses drop and you have less cortisol in your system, and hence less cortisone, which is a pain reducer. You're healing, but now you've got more pain because you've got less cortisol floating through your system. And then you're like, oh no, I'm getting worse. Well, actually, you're getting better. You're just feeling more because you don't have so much numbing chemistry in your body. So there's a lot of things to this. There's a lot of research on emotions and emotional processing and how we hold it in our body as well. And um, understanding the science of pain is a huge way of coming out of pain. So for those of you listening, this kind of work of, the TMS work, John Sarno's work, Howard Schubner, all of those people, educating yourself that just because we're saying that it's processed in your head, it doesn't mean that you're not actually having some physiological process. You could be having some cortisol shifting. You could be having some immune activation, but it's happening because of a stress response that is being processed incorrectly in the brain.
And how much do you think that applies to the symptoms that we get? So, fatigue.
Yeah.
Okay,
It applies to all of it.
yeah.
I mean, the more, just in the last 2 years, I've been learning so much about cell danger response and I call it immune confusion. Some people call it overactive immune response, which basically means our system gets stuck in a stress response and the immune system goes haywire. Instead of like cleaning up our B cells and T cells once the original infection is passed, we don't clean these things up. And then we have something called immunosenescent cells that float through the body, creating all sorts of like fake targets of, oh, there's a problem here and there's a problem there. The immune system gets signals. They're like, oh, we got to make you tired because we got this stuff going on that's not actually going on anymore because the body's just stuck in a chronic stress response. And it's super complex. But to simplify it, our body gets stuck as if it is still in a war in the initial stages. And those initial stages will send signals of fatigue, of pain, of neurosymptoms, of flu-like symptoms, all sorts of things. Even though that initial war isn't actually happening, your body's trying to clean up, but it keeps getting stuck into thinking it's back at that initial insult. And it's all this complex psychoneuroimmunology and the immune system and the cellular communication system being offline. And the good news is that our autonomic nervous system is the big daddy that helps to regulate this. Of course, like cleaning up our diet's important and living in a clean environment, and all of those things assist. But the autonomic nervous system is literally controlling the dials of our immune system, our cell danger response, all of that kind of stuff. And that's why these processes of brain retraining, vagus nerve toning, somatic work, trauma therapy, are having such a benefit for people with chronic illness because it's bringing the dials of the immune system back into homeostasis so that it's not just firing at every target in the body and making you feel like, I don't even know what's wrong anymore because I have symptoms left and right and change every day, right?
Yeah, it's I guess it's like a form of PTSD, really, isn't it? From like that
It
initial.
is. It's like immune PTSD. Literally, your immune cells are in PTSD. They're just firing at everything. The
Yeah.
cells are like, I think we need to hunker down. And the other one's like, no, 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 we got to do this. That's a great way to say it. Cellular PTSD.
Well, I just remember there's this, and I'm going to butcher this story because I just remember it's like there's I don't even know where it's from, so I probably shouldn't even say it, but I think it's like some like a soldier from Vietnam, like it was like 40 years past the war or something, and he was still coming out every day thinking he was going to start the war because he was still in that kind of in that like flight like mindset. I need to look that up before that. I'm on to
Yeah, yeah,
edit.
yeah. No, I know what you're talking about.
But you guys got the gist of it. I want to ask you a little bit about the different stages of where people are at and kind of your advice in those situations, and then I'll selfishly loop it back to me.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, like which is I think when we last spoke, I wasn't there. I was kind of like a bit past that, but I was still close to it in the sense of there was a lot of mental barriers, limiting beliefs for me to get through. And I feel like that is a massive part of the first part of the journey. And even the realization that you can recover, that in itself is a key part of the first one.
Yeah.
So what do you do with the people who are like really in it and they're not getting joy in any part of their lives, they're not moving, they're not doing any of that. What is the key thing for them to do right at the beginning to make sure they can start moving to the next kind of phase?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say that unfortunately that's a big problem in our world today is that a lot of people are getting sick and we don't have a medical system that understands the importance of the autonomic nervous system functioning, nervous system regulation, trauma healing. And so they're stuck usually seeing practitioners who don't have solutions or partial solutions. And often they spend so much money just on all these diagnoses and tests only to be left with like a few pills and like being like, I don't know, you just people get sick and then they get this fatigue and we don't know why. And you're just that hopeless state of not having an answer is part of why their mental state shuts down. There's no solution for them in that medical model. And so they're going to have to leave that medical model. And that's hard because we're taught to trust that. We're taught to trust that model. So the first step is the disruption of the old model and learning a new science. And so I always start teaching people the science behind chronic illness, starting with usually a quiz like, do you have these symptoms? If you do, likely you've got some nervous system component to your diagnosis. And the good news is that you can shift your nervous system component to your diagnosis. Just getting them some type of agency or control of the way that they can impact their diagnosis, their condition is huge for the mind because the mind wants to feel like it can do something about it. But often they need the science to convince them about why their symptoms might have an autonomic nervous system component to it because that education is often not given to them in the medical model.
Yeah. And do you so I put a poll out recently and I said how many, because I was really interested. I've started to get people now who were bedbound a couple of years ago and now ready to come on and tell their story, which is amazing. Like it kind of this is why the podcast was created. But then so I put a poll out like how many people in the last 2 years have like not improved or got worse, improved. I don't know. There was like four parts of it, and it was really interesting because the people who've recovered, the same percentage of people who'd recovered to the same percentage of people who were the same or had got worse. And then I got a number of messages which I read resonated with me, and that it really triggered them. And this poll, they weren't having a go at me. They were just
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
they didn't even want to vote on it because seeing other people recover, it was triggering for them. And I used to get that whenever I used to go to like get treatment and I was around other people and they're responding really well to it, it would just shine such a light on like how it wasn't working for me and that there was something special about me that meant I like couldn't recover, not special in a good way. And so do you see that a lot as well? Like people almost like getting triggered quite easily. That's what I find when I see those comments from people. I'm like, that's such a key point for you to get round where you're inspired rather than triggered.
Yeah. Yes, it can feel really, really upsetting when I was that person. I was the one that was sick for so many years and I would learn things and tell other people and they would get better and I was still sick. And what I came to realize is that my nervous system was in a deep state of cell danger response, a deep state of guarding, a deep state of immune confusion because I had probably a bigger setup in my psychoneuroimmunology for um, not having the space in my nervous system to get back into balance. And so everybody's story and their history is different. And when somebody, does the same thing as you and they're like, oh, this is working great. And for you, it's not the same. Your system, there's not anything wrong with you. The way that your nervous system and your communication system was set up may have some deeper layers to deal with. It doesn't mean that you can't recover. It means that you may need a bit more TLC with the nervous system, a bit more trauma processing, potentially a bit more coaching to help your system find a new way, a new set point of how to live. some people just are given a better, healthier initial set point of moving out of chronic illness.
Mm. Yeah, that's it. It's super interesting. It's like, I think what's amazing about doing as many episodes as I have done now, there's so many commonalities, but then there's also so many differences. In a positive way, in there's so many ways to recover, I feel like, but the commonality is that it pretty much does always come back to the nervous system and there being dysregulation there. And that's something to really focus on. With like the next phase, well, I guess I was probably more in kind of like just past that phase, but still feeling terrible, like all the time. It's still like a 24/7 thing. Now I'm kind of, I'm at the point where, and I see this, hear this quite a lot, where people are kind of at about 90%. I don't like to put a percentage on it.
Yeah.
And even I did an episode yesterday, recently, where I spoke to someone and they were saying, but you're recovered. And it's like, I think the minute you can admit that you're recovered, that's actually a big step for you. And you don't, by saying you're not recovered, you're actually feeding into that old mindset. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's crazy. Yeah. Because if anyone says, oh, how is your health? I'm like, I'm much better, but I'm still not quite there. And that's still a form of that kind of old,
Yeah.
a lot of sun shining in here. Now I'm going to switch that. And that's been a bit of a game changer recently. Like, can I actually just think of myself as uh, recovered, but I still want to optimize my health more, which was always my goal. So yeah, I'll go on to my initial question first. But what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that is a brilliant challenge for you because the ego has a sense of what recovery means. But reality to me, when you're able to live your life and you are not sitting there just focusing on your health all day, I think you're recovered from chronic illness because we are humans and we are going to have things. We're going to be aging. We're going to have things hit us. And sometimes when we make recovery of like, I need to feel perfectly great. Nothing's bothering me. I'm da 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 da. That is almost to me an egoic goal. And like, I want to feel perfect again. There's the perfectionism. Now, does that mean that we aren't going to have days or weeks or months where we feel amazing? No, I think that we can totally feel amazing. I can have times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm as free as I could possibly be. And then, I'll hit something. I'm like, I feel a little wore out right now. Or I'm dealing with this emotional thing again. And, I thought that. So this is life. But when you're not down in the trenches anymore and you're out living, I
Mm,
would allow yourself to feel like I'm past that chronic illness stage. I'm now optimizing
yeah.
myself. And that's a different identity.
Yeah, no, it really is. I think it's because it's taken so long. It's difficult to, yeah, you hear of these stories, and I've had them on the podcast where they did brain retraining, and then the next day they were completely healed, or like within over a couple of weeks. And so
Yeah.
I never had that, and so I have to constantly reflect back and see how far I've come.
Yeah.
Because I have days now where I do feel really shitty, but because I have this experience of improving and recovering from blips and stuff like that,
Yeah.
when those happen, they don't scare me as much anymore. Because I kind of have full belief that things will be all right. With that, so the stat, and there were quite a lot of people that said they've significantly improved, but they don't consider themselves recovered. So I'd probably in that bracket. Maybe I'm going to be I'm going to admit to myself that I am. I still feel like at the moment that I'm still that kind of, I'm still that person that gets sick really easily. I'm in Bali. I get stomach issues all the time. My wife never ever gets sick. She's like got an iron stomach. I got dengue this year, dengue fever, which
Mhm.
was an experience in itself. And I just typical typical that it would be me. And I say typical, I'm not saying, I don't know, that sounded bad, but like as in, I do feel like I still am that person that gets stuff, and that
Yeah.
I'm more vulnerable than I would like to
Yeah.
be, and I'm not as robust as I would like to be. Do you in your when you your course now, do you address people like that who are kind of, I guess, wanting to just
Mhm.
be more robust?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's in fact, I'm really in the stage of actually doing more research about that, and, I'll be speaking more about that publicly as I get more understanding, but basically, you're somebody whose immune system still goes through confusion. It might not be that you're not as robust, it could be that your immune system gets overreactive.
Mm.
Sometimes we think it's a bad thing, but actually, sometimes for some of us with this history, and I know this because personally and other people I worked with, and this new understanding of immune overreaction, cell danger response that just gets stuck really easily. So you might get a bug and your system just opens fire at everything because of the past. Because it's like we're used to like, oh my gosh, something big is coming. Whereas your partner can get the same thing and she hardly notices the reaction, but she's actually dealing with the same thing. It's
Mm.
just her immune system. It's quieter. It's taking place in the background. It's not going into a massive cell danger response. So I would relabel this as my immune system sometimes can get a little overreactive, and I'm learning how to um, keep the dials in more of a homeostasis as things come and go. And the way that we approach life, I believe, helps to entrain the immune system the same way. So as things happen and you keep your cool with it, I believe that also entrains the way the immune system responds when things happen. I'm looking into other strategies, even like diet strategies, exercise strategies, all the things that influence the factors, the dials of the immune system, including the autonomic nervous system. That's something I'm personally looking at right now because I do believe learning how to keep our immune system in that homeostasis as best we can is part of the new medicine, and the autonomic nervous system is, to me, the biggest component of that. But if you start to get sick and you start to be like, oh no, here it comes, that's part of what's going to dial that dial back up. So
Yeah,
your response to the thing, the immune system is listening. Okay. And that's why certain people that don't have a lot of history of chronic illness, they can get sick and they ride it and they're like, oh, yeah, yeah, I just rested. Like my partner, he never had chronic illness. He gets a bug. He's like, oh, I get to be cozy for a few days. He does not turn up the dial. He enjoys it because he's not afraid of it getting stuck.
yeah.
Right. So our response is important.
Yeah, no, definitely. I also think that because I improved, and I think that this is probably a common thing that happens. People improve and then they slip back into kind of older tendencies. And because I've been doing a lot of exercise, which has been really good for, getting better. It also, there's a lot of like push, push, push,
Mhm.
and not of like a lot of relaxation. And when I started working with a breathwork practitioner out here, which has been like amazing for me, they said that have no issue getting up here, and that's like my goal. I want to be high off my own supply, but it's on the other side of like
Mhm.
relaxing and calming. And so I've always found like meditation really difficult. I know everyone says this, but like I did it solidly for 2 years, 2 times a day, and I kind of never got what I was hoping I would get out of it, which is a calm and relaxation. But I started doing. I talked about it on my Instagram the other day. I started doing Yoga Nidra.
Yeah.
Quite a lot, and I started doing Qigong as well, 2 of
Mhm.
both of which were like I'm not doing Qigong as much as I would like right now, just of time, but breathwork and Yoga Nidra together has just been this thing where I have an aura ring, and you just
Yeah.
see I just slip into this restorative state, like, straight away in the morning. Compare that to what I was doing before, which is where I'd go straight to the gym, I'd get my morning sunlight, but I'd be straight into like, fight or flight, I guess, and then I'd have a coffee afterwards and go straight into work,
Yeah.
like awful. So now I'm having this nice restorative start to my day. Yes, I go into stress after, but doing that every day, I imagine is like, you know, like over a long period of time, that's got to be, pretty important, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of that's exactly what you need to do to retrain that immune response, and we talk about this a lot of that polyvagal wave of like activity of sympathetic activity, the go, 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 and then rest and relaxation, sympathetic, rest and relaxation. And that's how you tone your nervous system for, okay, I need to ramp up a response right now because I sense a new bug in the system. But now that I've done that, I'm going to like back off, relax, and now let my body clean that up because your body needs to, what happens is like the immune system, gets active, but then it needs to clean up. It needs to clean up the immune cells. It needs to clean up just debris. And if you don't go into that relaxation response, you don't clean up. And so you stay sick longer and you get all sorts of weird symptoms that linger. And that in and out of active rest, active rest. That's how we train the system so that it can do that even with a bug. Like, okay, really active, but now I need to rest and clean up. So I think it's brilliant what you're doing. I love Qigong. I love Yoga Nidra. I personally found that to be something I had to do to retrain what movement could be like for like, especially Qigong movement that's parasympathetic. I also do the aura ring to monitor what I'm doing. I was always shocked when I first started wearing my aura ring, how like podcasts like this would be perceived as sympathetic high. And I'm like, oh, but I was having so much fun. We were talking. And I'm like, oh, okay. So when I get off, I need to schedule downtime and go like play my sound bowl and just chill out because that was a sympathetic high. And instead of like taking the high and like working hard, because that's what I would do, it's
Yeah.
like, that's not good, Kat. That brings you into the old way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. I probably would like to, and that I don't know. My breathwork. I was just about to say need. Then the breathwork practitioner that I work with, she always catches me saying need and should, and I don't know. I now whenever I say need or should, I try to correct myself and say that I'm choosing to, I would like to have more of like a midday and end of day thing, but I'm trying to just be. It's like if I'm like classic kind of all or nothing that most people probably relate to, that I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do yoga nidra 3 times a day now. It's like, no, just do it at the start of the day for 3 months, and then maybe you can allow yourself to do more. Do you find that people coming through the program, they they come in with like a lot of enthusiasm. They say they're going to do 3 hours of brain retraining a day,
Yeah.
and then after a week, they're just like, oh my
Yeah. Yeah.
god, I
Yeah.
can do this and give up.
Yeah. Well, because, if the brain thinks it's found the solution, it's always like initially like, oh, yeah, we're going to do this. So whether it's the diet, the exercise, the brain retrain, it's part of like, it's actually more of like a grasping energy. It feels like motivation, but I'm going to fix this and I'm super motivated to fix it. And as soon as it's not getting like the exact reward it wants, it loses that dopamine high of this is not fun anymore and I'm not getting this instant like amazing feedback. And so it starts to be like, I don't really feel like doing that now.
And what do you feel is and then these might be like difficult questions to answer, like just one thing, but what would you feel is the biggest limiting factor for people not doing better in your course? And then what do you feel is like the biggest success factor when you see people improve?
That's a good question. Let's start off with the success. I've now, we're going to be close to 12,000 people through the process. So I've done a lot of success interviews, and there is a common denominator of what people say. And they often say this: I finally chose myself. I finally showed up for myself. I finally committed and made myself really matter. And in a lot of ways, that might be that they they committed to the practice, but often it's more than that. Like, I chose to say no when I meant no. I stopped fawning or like people pleasing. I carved out self care time for me. They started to love themselves and make their purpose about becoming the best version of themselves. I was just watching an interview by David Goggins. He says the same things. Your purpose is yourself, your development of your highest version of yourself. Then you have much to give to others. So these people make their purpose finally about themselves. And I think something happens with self love and almost like nourishing and nurturing like our inner child and that like I matter. I matter. Even though I have kids and a partner and a job and whatever, I matter and I'm going to take care of me this way. And I'm going to stop saying yes when I mean no. like every one of them say this, I chose myself in a different way, shape, or form. So that's one thing. Now, what people do that I would say keep them stuck. Um, some I don't want to be like offensive, but there is a common thing that I see, which is that they can't get over their past, their story. And I'm going to call it kind of in a victim consciousness way. But what that means is that their story hasn't been validated yet or understood in some way, shape, or form. And we all need our stories to be heard and understood. So I don't want to, and I was there. Like I was absolutely that person for many, many years. There's something about I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. I don't feel understood. And I'm not ready to let go of what happened to me because this needs to be acknowledged. And maybe the way it's being acknowledged is like, I've got this diagnosis and I'm suffering because the real trauma is hidden and nobody will see it. That's how it was for me. I had some real trauma. Nobody would see in my family. We wouldn't talk about it. So, what did I want seen? My Lyme disease, my mold toxicity. Here's my thing. Somebody validate this. Once I realized what needed to be validated was the old thing that I didn't really have parents taking care of me. I was taking care of myself. I had some stuff happen because nobody was watching over me. When I was able to really look at that and share that story and have it be seen, I didn't need Lyme and mold and all of that to be validated anymore because the real source of my suffering was seen. There's something that happens there. And then it's like I'm allowing myself to heal. Then I'm allowing myself to show up and do the work and whatever because it was seen, it was understood. And most importantly, it's seen by me and it's understood by me. So that's one thing I would say about what I see can keep people stuck.
Yeah, definitely. And both of those resonate from a personal point of view, but also in what I see with other people as well. It's interesting what you say about like showing up for yourself, and I get nourishing yourself in the like now. I think I'd to like take so much more. i- If I hadn't have ever had any of these issues, see, I don't like to say if I hadn't got sick,
Yeah.
I changed
Yeah. Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
If I haven't had any of these issues, I would never take care of myself in the way I do now. I would never have this bedtime routine. I would never like, look into like the food, and not from a hypervigilance point of view. From a,
Yeah.
I want to, yeah, feed and nourish my body. I want it to, and I think that's such an amazing gift to have from all the stuff we've been through. Do you see that a lot that people? Because I mean, I think that's why there's a lot of like practitioners or people in the space that people that they can't just walk away. They can't go back to their sales job in an office. They're like, no, I know that health is like the most important thing. I need to like devote my life to it. Do you see that people kind of, it really reframes not just their opinion on health, but like their opinion on like what health can be in the future, like from an optimal point of
Yeah. Well, if you think about what I just said a minute ago, that what needs to be seen is this original thing that happened, which that usually is some lack of care and support and nourishment by people that should have been there for us. Somehow going through this journey allows us to become that inner mother and father to care for us that we needed. And that's exactly what they reclaim, and so that becomes very important to them. Like you said, you would never care for your bedtime routine and create containers and boundaries around yourself to, like, optimize yourself. So, I see this as a way of waking up to reparent ourselves in some way that we missed, and in some way that we can now also, nourish and nurture others around us. So, it's a very healing thing in the end, and it becomes a priority, like, it's not just about like keeping my body healthy. It's literally loving myself and caring for myself and creating a container of I matter. And that's what I think is actually happening in the healing process.
Question that has come to me recently. Do you think there needs to be a little bit of a different approach between men and women, or people who are more masculine dominated
Mm.
than feminine dominated? Because what I've found as a man in this space uh, is that there was a lot of uh, feminine energy, a lot of into your feelings, and
Yeah.
it was very soft. And I think that was bad for me for quite a while, because I am more masculine dominated, and probably too much in some ways. And I think that started to make me feel like I couldn't tap into that strength and that
Yeah.
primal strength.
Yeah. Should
Um,
make a men's chorus, Primal Strength instead
yeah,
of Primal
yeah,
Trust.
definitely. And I feel that was actually key to me, like progressing. That I tapped into that
Mhm.
because I needed that strong identity.
Yeah.
Do you do you think there needs to be a bit of a different approach?
I do. I've really been looking into also studying polarities, mostly just for my own development too, with my partner and I. But men do need different. They need men. Men need men. Men need men to go through that initiation. Sometimes what's missing is literally just an imprint of from each other. And I think anciently men spent time with men imprinting each other. And now we don't have that. And I think that's where men's groups are so important. We have a men's group in our program for this reason. But I also think that the program ideally would be, I mean, I wish that there would be a men centered program that I could refer to because I think it's desperately needed. I don't think I'm the one to create it because I'm a woman. And, so yeah, 100%. But I do know that men need men. They need an imprint and they need healthy men. They need to see um, the energy of what it's like to be that imperturbable, I show up, but also to be held by men and to be able to feel that wounding and even maybe cry with men sometimes and to both feel their vulnerability and their strength in that container. 100%. I think that's important and needed and missing so much in our society.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that, yeah, think that that's I was thinking about it the other day. I've got like friends that I'm still friends with, but I look at them, and this is not to do with chronic health, it's just a general comment on men. And I just realized that like I assume they have these other groups of friends because we don't hang out as much anymore, but they don't, and they're just with their families. And that's all their life is: work and family, work and family. They don't have other men to be around. And when you're growing up, and yet their partners make time. It's kind of the same with my mum and dad, actually. My mum has like a social life and my dad doesn't really as much. And
Yeah.
I think men are quite prone to that. They don't go and get in these communities like
Mhm.
women do. And yeah, just is that do you see that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I literally my partner is the same way and I'm like, you gotta find a men's group, something because I have, yeah, this big social life. It's so needed. It's like I said, I've been learning a lot about this and realizing like I think it's a huge missing component. Um and I don't know what it's going to take, but it's going to take, people like you saying I need to start this. I need to create this group. I need to find like-minded men who want to support each other and both be vulnerable and strong together. And yeah, it is happy. There are men's groups and stuff like that, but they're not as common. And you're right. It's a huge issue for sure.
I've got a few questions that came in. I just want to ask you. So, someone has said that I think we said, what do you say to users that have found Primal Trust course dense and overwhelming? I think
Mhm.
maybe he's saying that. I know. What I will say is like I think everything's overwhelming when you're looking
Yeah.
at courses.
Yeah.
I've never not once felt overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And also, if you were to do a course, and I'm not defending, by the way, and this is not a defense, this is just like my actual opinion on it. Also, if you were to do a course that was very kind of like threadbare, then you'd be like, well, what the hell is this? I need something, this is a big thing I'm working on. So I think
Yeah.
it's really difficult to get that balance, but I'll put
Yeah.
that to you.
Yeah, it's a great question, it's and I will say this, nervous system regulation is self-mastery process that requires a lot of education and it requires more than one tool. And if someone's going to sell you the single tool that's going to fix you, I would look elsewhere. It takes a lot. And what got us into this is a whole mindset of how we've approached our health. And so my process has a lot of science, it has a lot of explanation, but even more, I have a lot of repetitive teachings because I'm trying to reprogram your sense of how you're living, how you're thinking about life, how you're thinking about your illness. And so in that process, I teach a lot of tools because brain retraining is not for everybody. So our level 1 program, we have over 40 different tools, and I want you to figure out what works for you. I want you to do something for your breath every day, something to elevate your mood every day, and something to move your body every day. So those are the principles. Within those principles, you're going to learn different tools. You're going to learn the science behind the tools because I know that if your rational brain doesn't believe in why this silly little thing is going to affect your Lyme disease or mold, you're not going to do it. So I do see it almost like a self mastery course with lots of tools in the toolkit so that you are always equipped in any situation. Recently, we just redesigned our level 1 course a couple weeks ago. We came out with something called quick start guides, which are literally like a 1 or 2-page summary of each module. And here's exactly the main things we want you to do from that module. Here's the aha. Here's the main tool. Here's what a daily practice looks like. So we've taken a 3-hour module and made it beautiful infographic. If even if you never watched the course, you could just download the quick start guides and start taking yourself through that. And I made those quick start guides for busy CEOs as well as people who have overwhelm and they just cannot go through that course. They just want to get started. So we do have a solution that just came out a couple weeks ago for those of you who've tried the program before.
Yeah, I think, I guess my opinion on that is that, it's going back to that, like living your life and enjoying your life whilst you're doing this. You can see improvements along the way that then make you more motivated to do it. And yeah, could you talk? We haven't. You mentioned before we started recording that the course that I looked at isn't the same as what it is now. What's
Right.
the main change?
Yeah. So I created a program called Level 1 Regulate right before 2023. And it really is the whole setup for our level 2 program, which is the mentorship, which I think you're familiar with, which I've also redone since you've been there. But level 1 is the science behind all of this stuff, the immune system, cell danger response, polyvagal theory, brain retraining, somatics, trauma. So it's the science and it's got 40 different tools ranging from brain retraining, vagus nerve toning, somatics, trauma processing. So it's really getting you a toolkit to handle your symptoms, to start rewiring your entire nervous system head to toe. But even more importantly, the science and the understanding of what's going on so you don't have to worry anymore about why you feel the way you feel. And so that process is about 2 months. I recommend 2 to 3 months to go through that process, maybe 4 months if you need to like space it out. And then once you have those tools, then you go into level 2, which is where you're going to look at your resistance, your emotional patterns, how you're living your life. But you need nervous system tools to handle that resistance like, okay, I want to get up and exercise, but this thing keeps happening. So I'm going to use these tools to work on the goals. I want to get closer with my partner, but these attachment wounding, this keeps coming up. What do I do? Well, you've got your tools from level 1. So level 1 is to really set you up for success of getting into like the original thing that caused your mind body connection to go offline in the first place. So yeah, level 1 has been, I think, a game changer for our program. It's what's caused us to go worldwide, and our data. We just had some data collected over 2,000 people, and our data is amazing. Those who complete the process fully, those who literally complete level 1 and level 2, Phil, we have a 100% of them say they have improved if they actually complete the process. That's insane.
Yeah,
100%.
nice.
Those that complete level 1 with Lyme, I believe it was 87% of people with Lyme had an improvement, and the average rate of improvement was 51% after under 3 months with Lyme disease. So completing the process, that's the challenge. But our data is, backs up what we're doing. So
No, for sure. And I think people are often scared to put out data. Sorry, I have to say data. I'm
yeah,
British. Because yeah, people are quite reluctant to do that. So I'm really glad that you have, because I feel like
yeah,
that brings a lot of confidence behind it for sure.
yeah.
Interesting. And then this is, I've got two other questions, but from me, how much How much time? And then, this is probably a question that it depends, right? You're gonna say it depends. This is a question I would have asked 2 years ago. I still ask now. But like, how much time do you see people needing to spend on their whatever they need to do each day?
Yeah.
It depends, right?
That is it's a good question, but I want to say it this way. It's not about time, it's about changing the way you live your life. So
Mm,
this education, these are tools that are sort of meant to inform you of like watching yourself. Like I just said, after this podcast, I have been on a sympathetic activity. Now I know that I need to go and do a little bit of breathing and chill out for just a couple minutes before I go make dinner. I've got tools. I know exactly the kind of breaths I'm going to do because I need to do this. Or, oh my gosh, I've got this big thing tomorrow. I'm freaking out. Okay, I need to do a little brain retraining practice because I want to rehearse how I want it to go and how I believe it can go so that I just get a little more space. So it's about a lifestyle. It's changing the way you live versus I've got to do this 20 minutes a day. Now, initially, you're going to need to learn the practices. So I would plan on 15 minutes to an hour a day to learn the practices. Once you've learned them, this is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle of being regulated. It's a lifestyle of self awareness. It's a lifestyle of breathing when you've gotten out of whack. It's a lifestyle of visualizing you taking aligned actions that day and actually going to the gym. It's a lifestyle of moving your body instead of being stagnant and searching on Google all day. What's wrong with you? So the correct question is, it's not really a question. What is this process? It's to create a new lifestyle where it's just the way you live, not things you have to do.
yeah, agreed. 2 more questions. So I'm from Germany. Do you think it's possible to join and understand?
Yeah, good question. We have lots of groups with different languages that meet and sort of like translate together. I believe we have a German group. I could be wrong about that. I know we have it translated in Spanish, but I think that there is a group that meets. I know we do have a lot of people from Germany and they kind of get together. Everything is written. So if you have a transcriber, you can run anything through that, our slides, our workbooks, all of that. Um, but I don't have it fully translated in German on my end.
Yeah, just to be clear to everyone, I did not give Dr. Kat these questions before, so I've
Oh,
probably caught her off guard with a
no,
few.
you can ask whatever.
um, fine, fine. And I've probably got an opinion on it, but can infertility be a mind-body symptom?
Yeah. I had a friend who, yeah, she was that perfectionist, vigilant, did everything for years. And then she's like, you know what? When I turn 45, I'm just going to give up. She turns 45. She got pregnant on her 45th birthday.
What? That's
So
crazy.
I need to just let go. And I've heard so many stories like this. I mean, that one was one of my favorites because she was one of my dear friends. She's
Yeah.
like, "Ah, I'm just giving up. I quit. That's all she needed to do. I do think there's something with the way our nervous system, for some people, can affect our hormone cycles and all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's possible.
Amazing. Amazing. Look, I really love, well, I love catching up with you, but love, you coming back on the show. So, and I think what you're building there, and again, this isn't a promo. This is just like, I genuinely think I do reference the stuff that came through for me. I'm even thinking maybe it makes sense for me to like go back for someone like me. Would you suggest like going back through it now? Now I'm in a bit
I
of a
would
different.
say that the quick start guides would be great for you because it's just a simple summary and it's gonna like I mean, I even learned from my quick start guides. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, these tools. And they're just nice to like print out, have by your bed. And they're just like easy, like flip it up, daily oh, I need something to do. Just open it up, daily practice. It gives you the ahas. I think that would be great. The other thing that is, I don't know if your audience knows, I have a free book called How Healing Happens. Maybe we could put it below the link.
Yeah.
And it's a 127-page guide that I just wrote. It's like a free mini program. It literally is a free level 1 program. It goes through all the science and it goes through several tools as well. So for those of you that like either have financial issues, you're like, I'm not sure about this, that guide, How Healing Happens, it's either on my website or maybe we could drop that below. That's another one, Phil, that maybe just reading that would be just a great refresher and sort of the latest of how I'm putting
Yeah.
things together.
Yeah, because I think I've kind of like tapped other than doing this, I kind of like and doing my own stuff that I do, kind of like tapped out of like courses for like quite a while,
Yeah.
which in itself
Yeah.
has been a little bit freeing. But yeah, I think now it's maybe I need to tap back in. But anyway, I'll stop talking about me. Thank you so much for coming on, and yeah, I'm sure you'll be the first person we have back on for the fourth time. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil. It's great to be here.